If you would remember, I told you that among the colonizers themselves, when they wanted to return to their various ethnic nation statuses as self-governing entities and no longer subdued under empires, the right to self-determination was the only principle they used and under which they achieved their desire. That was the one single principle and right which they employed to get themselves free. And everything went smoothly for them. Hardly would you find them having to engage in a war, fight, or battle in the course of becoming free and pursuing self-governance. If and when such happens, it's usually very brief and settlement of issues come quite fast. And everybody go their way. They don't stand in each other's way to return the entity seeking freedom back into subjugation under another. In every case of seeking self-determination and exiting a previous arrangement to become self-governing, each went their separate ways. Take the former USSR, for instance. They went their different ways as what is now known as Russia and the other countries that went their separate ways. There were so many countries that emerged from the former USSR. Yet there was no war, other than the recent one. But as at the time they split, each and every one of them simply went their ways. Their own case was actually quite funny, because they are the same racial stock, only that they've got slight differences in their history. But the fact being emphasized here is that they split into their different self-governing countries, so many of such countries. There are countries like Czech, which split from another. The exit from the previous arrangement was done easily. With a shake of hands, each one went their different ways. No war, no rancor, because they employed their right to self-determination. It was the only principle, the only right, upon which they acted and gained their freedom for self-governance. But when an African country wants to exit a previous arrangement, they expect there to be a fight, a war. A senseless war. At the end of hostilities, they wouldn't have gained anything from the fight. These African countries so fight when exiting from a previous arrangement because they think that their real problem is with one another, not knowing that their real problem, their actual enemies, are behind the scenes, outside of Africa. Their actual enemies are the white colonizers. They're the one controlling the issues. You heard quite clearly what Macaulay said, read it again, and understand that the problems in Africa arise from him. The whites are doing what Macaulay suggested to them. At least in the Not a Nation arrangement called Nigeria, that's what they did. And it's still the system on ground there. For us indigenous Yoruba people, God already knew that we would, preferably for the colonizers, be a special target of theirs. This is because of the great good and grace that God has done for us. We have been recipients of His mercy. So, for us, like I said, we have already completed our process in the year 2024. Because we used our right to self-determination. We used our right as indigenous people. We used our right as ethnic nationalists. We also have our human rights. As a matter of fact, the rights that we've got as Yoruba for self-governance are of such kind that not even opposition from anyone among us can nullify the exercise of our right to self-governance. You don't have to like it. You don't have to support it. That does not in any way nullify the right. Neither can it successfully assail against the exercise of it. If you say you are not in support of it, what you are actually saying is that you are not in agreement with what the Creator has given to our race by virtue of creating us as sovereign, indigenous, and ethnic nationalists. And what can you do about what God Himself has given to us by creation? Nothing. So, your opposition does not matter. It is what God has done by creation. It cannot be changed. So the only option you've got is for you to find your way out of the system. Get yourself lost wherever you so decide. If you choose to die, so be it. If you choose to relocate elsewhere, so be it. Whatever you choose to do does not change this one fact. The Yoruba race, the Yoruba ethnic nationality, remains where it is. God placed us there. He gave us our language. Do you want to alter our ethnic nationality? Do you want to replace what God has done for us and given to us? How do you want to achieve that? It's all within God's hand. He made us so. So certain of you cannot gather yourselves together, claiming you are not in favor of it or you don't like it. If you don't like it, you can as well go and kill yourself, as there's nothing you can do to alter who and what God created us to be. A sovereign people by creation. A people with an inalienable right to self-governance by God's own design and purpose. What we are doing is according to the truth that God has put in our hands. He led us step by step which way to go, and He granted the success of it. By the year 2024, it was complete. The work has been done, irrefutably so, irreversibly so. As a matter of fact, we took and executed more steps than are actually necessary for our exit from Nigeria and the running of our own self-government. In other words, we have fulfilled over and above everything that was needed to be done. And everything is internationally documented. It's documented across the world apart from being specifically documented at the United Nations. The entire world have got the documents. That's how much goodness God procured for us in this matter. So every step-by-step action we needed to take to avoid war and to peacefully achieve our aim of self-governance has been done, just as the whites themselves do, and successfully too, even when they are using just the self-determination principle and right alone. In our own case, our God-given rights, by virtue of our kind of creation, is much more than the right to self-determination. Europeans achieve self-governance only by using their right to self-determination. How much more would we, whom God has done so much more good for, how much more would we achieve the same? Definitely, we have to achieve it. It's God that has done that great and good thing for us. So, we use the right to self-determination, along with all our other rights. In addition, we also use the right to self-defense. The right to self-defense allows for us to take action against anything on our ancestral land that we do not want. Anything that seeks to encroach upon or impose itself upon our territory. We have the right to fight against such, and to fight using whatever is at our disposal. We can sue them to court. We can fight them off. We can do whatever we like. We can use all means to defend ourselves. All means, all ways, all methods. We have the right. We can use whatever we choose to defend ourselves, defend our territory, and get every opposition, every encroacher, off our way, off our land, off our territory. Whatever we do in this regard can never constitute wrong for us in any way. We are justified to use our right to self-defense against anybody that stands in our way, anybody who encroaches on IYP ancestral land or property, because by reason of our being indigenous people, it is our land, our territory. We've got the automatic right to it. So, whoever you may be that wants to stand in our way and want to go contrary to our right of self-governance on our own land, whatever means or method that we choose to neutralize your opposition cannot be challenged. There's no judicial system anywhere under which you can challenge our exercise of the right to self-defense, which right we have used against your atrocities on our sovereign territory. You will lose such a case. There is no judicial action you can use successfully against indigenous people who are acting on their right. It's a God-given right. So, know it, indigenous Yoruba people, that the right to self-defense as indigenous people is also one of the rights that we stand upon, and which we have used in executing our exit from Nigeria and in announcing and establishing successfully our own government on our own ancestral sovereign land. In addition to all of the above, we also used our right as sovereign people, and that was what nailed every opposition to death. We are a sovereign people. In other words, we are an undiluted single stock, a single unit of God's creation, a race that is designed from origin to be one, not mixed with another to stand alone. We've got automatic sovereignty. You can imagine the not-a-nation arrangement called Nigeria, thinking that it has got sovereignty when it's not even a nation in the first place. And certain criminals are joining in calling it sovereign. How? Where did Nigeria obtain sovereignty? When you are not even a nation, how would you have sovereignty? Where did such supposed sovereignty emerge from? As for us, indigenous Yoruba people, we are a sovereign people. By reason of being a sovereign people, we are automatically free and independent, and are not supposed to merge or be together with any other people or entity. But having found ourselves within a merger, a union, an amalgamation, which is inconsistent with our being a sovereign people, we simply extricated ourselves, we removed ourselves, we excited the unnatural amalgamation, and we did so peacefully, gently, aligning ourselves with our automatic natural status as a sovereign people. We exited the unnatural amalgam via the step-by-step process that God laid down for us. A process authorized by God, a process which God Himself successfully accomplished. Thus, He alone has all the glory, all the praise. So, our process of exit and of announcing and establishing our own self-government is already concluded. It has been concluded since the year 2024. So, in this year, 2025, nobody, ever, can do any evil or disturb or corrupt what has already been concluded successfully and finally, eternally, as at the year 2024. It's beyond what anybody can do anything against. It is God's promise. All of you who are planning your falsehood, gathering yourselves together, calling yourselves Oba, saying you wouldn't support what God has done, you would scatter it and so on, you ought to know that it is your own very life and existence that has just gotten scattered. Don't you look at yourselves? Don't you examine your own selves? Can't you investigate and review your own lives? Can't you see that your own lives are now already corrupted? You are perished, you are done for, and you have actually ceased to exist. Who is deceiving you and encouraging you to deceive yourselves? You are gathering yourselves together and supposedly planning things, but against who, I ask? Against which race? Against which ethnic stock, against which ethnic nationality are you planning? You are done for. You are planning against the very Yoruba race that you had opened your eyes to allow to suffer? Didn't you see the plans and ideas which the colonialist Macaulay gave to his fellows, the replacement agenda that he proposed to them, and which resulted in their establishing the evil foundation called Nigeria? Well, know it for certain. We, the Yoruba, are no longer in that arrangement. Democratic Republic of the Yoruba, DRY, is not in that arrangement. Let this fact be very clear to everybody. God Himself started our exit and self-governance process in the year 2022, and He successfully completed it in the year 2024. That's it. It's finished. Completed. And this wouldn't have been the way it has been if not that the evil colonizers had replaced everything that is ours. Because if they had not replaced everything prior to our exit, we would somewhere along the line have been awakened much earlier to the predicament that the colonizers placed us in. That was the reason Macaulay told his mates that if Africa is allowed to still retain their ancient education system, their knowledge, their culture, and everything, their spirituality, there's no way ever that Britain or Europe would be able to conquer Africa. In other words, If they had not brought the illusion and brainwashing and all the corruption with which they replaced our original African reality, our original Yoruba reality. If they had not replaced that, they wouldn't have succeeded. But because the replacement had taken place and therefore we no longer had the knowledge of who we used to be, it was easy for the enslavement to continue. Think of all the years. Think of how long ago they started that program of replacements of our reality. Go and calculate how long ago. I have already here today given you all the significant dates, so you can easily calculate how long ago this evil had been on ground. You can calculate how many years they put us in darkness, for how many years they put us inside falsehood, and for how many years they got us locked up inside an illusion. They put us inside what they, as colonizers, desire, so they can truly dominate us as they had planned. Slaves is the word. That's what they made us to be. Now, I have said this before, but look at it again. With that kind of arrangement by the colonialists, did any of us ever, or does any of us have the slightest idea of how to get out of that slavery arrangement? The arrangement that the colonizer had so craftily put in place. An arrangement in which every single thing that speaks of our reality had been replaced. They had, in the place of our reality, established their own pattern, their own system, what they want us to follow, what they want us to serve. And they had so much deceived us, making us to think that what they gave to us is the good thing and to be desired. They had presented it as normal, and every one of us had settled for that. That fakery had been entrenched as our lifestyle, whereas it is complete falsehood. It is deception. Think of this. The colonialist is thoroughly evil. They are completely without empathy. Nobody knew we were living inside falsehood. We didn't know that the education system they gave to us is outright falsehood. A testimony to this fact is that not even you that are supposedly educated, not even you, did you ever know that you were in darkness? Did you realize that what you call education is corruption, falsehood, and illusion? Go and check again what Macaulay said, and think about it. Your education is simply the falsehood that Macaulay had proposed should be given to you. The falsehood that would keep you where the colonizer had deliberately, intentionally put you. So, in reality, what were you taught? What education were you given? They taught you just what they want you to know, what they want you to imbibe, which they know wouldn't be useful to you, and wouldn't bring you out of the darkness they had placed you in, and wouldn't bring you out of the bondage you are in. Neither would it bring you out of the poverty you are in. That's what they taught you. They arranged the education system such that you wouldn't have mental development, such that you wouldn't be mentally developed to the extent of knowing that you are in bondage, how much less to think of getting yourself out of the bondage, because they had broken your backbone. They had determined, they had known, that should you be allowed to reason for yourself, they wouldn't be able to conquer you. So everything they did, everything the colonizer did to you, was to ensure that you remain where they had intentionally placed you, in darkness, in poverty, in subjugation to themselves, for their own advantage, their own benefits, as colonizers. So, can any one person claim to have the knowledge and the understanding to get himself out of such bondage? From whom would such a person get that knowledge and understanding? That's why I always say that God alone has all the glory in this matter. He has only sent me to do what He has done. He's the one who started teaching me and explaining to me all these secrets. He revealed them to me. Before He started revealing the secrets, did anybody know that there was a certain right known as the right of indigenous peoples? Nobody knew. In the whole of West Africa, there was never, before now, any documented or recorded indigenous people. We, the indigenous Yoruba, are the very first people now to be recorded as indigenous people. It is through us that the truth of indigenous people existence in West Africa has been brought out, and it was after that that all indigenous people existence in West Africa became recorded. Go and find out. Go and research into all the things happening behind the scenes, behind the regular news. It was when we started arguing our case with them, that was when they now brought out what they had been hiding. They brought it out. They brought out countless facts, various facts, which they had been hiding before now. What they established, what they planted and established, their foundation, structure, and policies, and so on, which they had established and put in place in the Not a Nation arrangement called Nigeria. Do you know what all of that gave birth to? Have you considered what it gave birth to? And those things are exactly what the colonizers want, so that, in line with what Macaulay proposed, they can truly dominate the indigenous population. What the colonizers planted in the Not a Nation arrangement called Nigeria has given birth to perpetual slavery, insecurity, terrorism, kidnapping, extreme poverty, a situation where the real owners of the resources are unable to use their own resources. They are not even aware of what they have. After all, who has actually seen all the resources that the colonizers have been taking away? Who did they show the resources to? Who did they disclose to that, look here, we have taken such and such from your land? Who did they ever disclose such a thing to? Did they disclose it to you, how much less giving you a little part of what actually belongs to you? No, they will never disclose those things to you, stealing you blind behind your back. They will only give some little crumbs to the stupid internal enemies, their collaborators. In this way, the population, the people, live in terrible poverty. They live in unimaginable suffering, indescribable suffering. God Almighty. People suffer to the extent that some use stagnant water to eat swallowed food because they can't afford appropriate soup for their food. My God, some resort to cannibalism. They eat human flesh. Abomination. Can you see the outcome of what the colonialist established? Meanwhile, demonic corruption is yet another output of the foundation established by the colonizers. Hunger and starvation are also products brought into the lives of the people by these evil people, the colonizers. Other things produced by these colonizers, among the people, include high suicide rate, unemployment, underdevelopment, collapsed infrastructure, hopelessness, and so on. Can you imagine? Look around you wherever you are, it's there. These are not things taught to us in history classes. They are visible facts of our present daily existence. We see them with our own eyes. We hear them as current news in the now with our own ears. They are not stories told to us from distant times. We hear that some people eat only once in 3 days. Some luckier ones eat only once in a day, and not even what they would love to eat. Some others work long and hard, yet no profitable income. They manage to survive. Yet, these stupid internal enemies say they are opposed to the liberation and the freedom that we now have. They are opposed to God delivering us out of all these poverty and suffering. They say they don't want that. They say they are opposed to God delivering us from all this perplexity and confusion. They say they don't want God delivering us out of slavery and imperialism. God has even now done such a good thing, giving us a brand new foundation, a brand new system, laying the foundation by himself. He placed a brand new structure and policy into our hands, our divine blueprint. Even when we made this known to the colonizers themselves, they knew, they could see, that it's a very sure foundation. Even they themselves have started now using the much they've heard of in our divine blueprint. Didn't you hear how they, too, have now come up with a 4 working days schedule? There are others things from us which they have also used for themselves too. I tell you definitely. I am talking of the Western colonizers themselves, not even speaking of what other African leaders have been using from our divine blueprint. Now, look at this. They are using just the much that they've heard us talk about. They've not yet heard about the ones we are yet to talk about. Now, look at the benefits upon benefits that we have already documented. Good things which God says we shall be receiving once we take over all our possessions, take over the entire four corners of our territorial boundaries, and we begin to live the life that He has now established for us via this divine blueprint. That's why I constantly say that I can't see anyone, except one that would suffer till death, one who would die in prison, I tell you. Anyone who would come claiming to have some idea contrary to the divine blueprint. What idea do you have? Why didn't you have such an idea in the not-a-nation Nigeria you are coming from? What idea does anyone have? How would you be able to come out of that arrangement that the colonizers set up and name Nigeria? They have placed their own foundation there. But for us indigenous Yoruba people in our own territory, Democratic Republic of the Yoruba, God has replaced that evil foundation of the colonialists. So where did you find whatever idea you are now talking about? Where did you find whatever you want to use to change it? You want to change what God has established? You are talking of having an idea? Definitely, you will perish. That's why the person who recently wrote some stupid manipulation of one of our published flyers, if you refuse to come to the open by yourself, we surely will discover who you are and will bring you into the open. You will be shocked how your life gets corrupted. Do you think we just write those flyers for the fun of it? Or any other thing for that matter that we do? No. It's God Himself that is leading us every step of the way what we must do. We only do what He instructs us to do. Do we know anything by ourselves? So you think you can just jump in with your own thing? Some mad person would then come claiming to have some idea. Which idea do you have? From where? We are only going to follow what God Himself gives to us. At least, we have seen a part of it that have so far been stated. Every one of us have read it. Everyone has seen it. Everyone has heard it. Even that much, the little that we already know now. If we go and live our life in accordance with even the little we have heard so far, imagine how sweet that life is. Meanwhile, the little that has been brought out thus far is so small, such a small part of the whole. The much benefits that we have already made public does not even in any way come near the total picture. It doesn't even come near the elementary part of it. Everybody will see it. After all, the time of manifestation is already at the door. How many more days remain in the year 2025? So you can see it's already at the door. It's here already. Nobody can stand in our way. Know that for certain. Because for sure, for certain, we shall receive this good thing. All the bad and evil things happening in the not-a-nation arrangement called Nigeria cannot change, because it's what the colonialists deliberately and intentionally said they would do. They said you would remain where they have chosen to put you, and that's where they have put you, right before your eyes. It's not a contested fact. It's something we all see and hear about. Everybody sees it. The owners of the land can't afford to send their own children to school. Meanwhile, foreigners on the land are the ones able to send their children to school. The only indigenes who can afford good education for their children are those mad people, those demons, highly corrupt people who have stolen public funds. They have taken the money meant for public spending. The owners of the land are unable to access adequate health care because they don't even have the money to feed in the first place. And how would you take medicines without adequate feeding? Can they afford to buy medicines when they can't even afford to feed properly? Some illnesses don't require up to 1 or 2,000 worth of money of the local currency to buy the necessary medicines for full recovery, yet the patient would die because they just don't have the money, as little as it is. That's the extent to which the colonizer and their internal collaborators have damaged the lives of the people, the owners of the land. Countless pregnant women die with the pregnancy. Countless others die immediately after childbirth because they have not been in good health. Sometimes the child dies, some other times the child survives, but the mother is dead. That's the system established by the colonizer. And it is for the purpose of wiping everybody out. They established that system, that foundation, for their own benefits as colonizers. Now God came to do us good, saying to us, "Now is the time. Rise up quickly. Open your eyes. Open your ears. Wake up. Wake up out of where they have put you. Come out quickly." But some of you are saying, no, you don't want that. Such people say that they prefer the Nigerian scenario. Even when you've heard the colonizers themselves say with their own mouth, and they wrote it down, that the Yoruba are undoubtedly the most urban of all African peoples. They went further to say that, as a matter of fact, the level of urbanization in Yoruba land in pre-colonial times is comparable to that in European nations. They wrote that down by themselves. I have just told you what they used in describing we indigenous Yoruba people. Go and research it. That was the situation back then. They also went ahead to write that the Oyo Empire was one of the greatest empires, and that it was comparable with the British Empire at that time. That was their description of us indigenous Yoruba people, as at that time. Now today, look at how the Yoruba and Yoruba land are described today. It's not something we have to be told. It's what we see by ourselves right before our eyes. The Yoruba race, so saddening, have now become a people whose natives are beggars, almajiri, abomination. God save us. Yoruba, of all peoples, now have social beggars, beggars roaming the streets. It's hitherto unheard of. But now, in Yoruba land, cannibalism is even recorded. Eating of human flesh, abomination. Even the colonizers themselves recorded it, prior to the present times, that Yoruba was never at any time a part of places where cannibalism was practiced. Never. Until now. It's in the records. Why now? Why is cannibalism now recorded among the Yoruba? It's upsetting. In any case, all of that has now come to an end. And whoever says or wishes that such evil should continue in Yoruba land by giving support to the Nigerian system against the good thing that God has now done for us, please, O God, let such a person become as though they were never born. Everything God has created with, be angry with that person and destroy him/her. What really is the matter? You heard how Yoruba and Yoruba land was described in the past. Isn't it a good thing for us to return now to those days of glory, and even have greater glory than we had back then? Isn't that a good thing? Isn't it good for us to return to our reality? The reality we had before the colonizer replaced it with evil, before they sent us into darkness? Isn't it good for us to return to our origin, to know our language and know our culture, and to know all the things that God created to be positively part and parcel of our Yoruba nature, and by which we were advanced and prosperous and developed, and for which reason we were described as being the #1 in Africa, and that our empire matched their own in Europe. As a matter of fact, that was part of what made them angry, that the Oyo Empire was comparable with the British Empire. They were so terribly annoyed and displeased about that fact. They were like, "What? Did you just say that the Yoruba matched the British?" Meanwhile, Yoruba is the head of all benefits that you colonizers have had. Speaking truthfully, the colonizer go round the world stealing what belongs to others. I believe you can see it clearly now, indigenous Yoruba people. Is it not right for us to return into joy, happiness, a situation in which foreigners didn't see any thief or beggar amongst us? Isn't it right for us to return to that, and this time around, even very far more glorious than that? May God at this time do a great wonder for us, as He has helped us reclaim this greatness, saying to us, "Now is the time. Begin this journey." And you can see the blueprint He has placed in our hands. No race, no ethnicity anywhere has the kind of our divine blueprint. It's a fact, not a statement of arrogance, because the evil colonialists had so much done their evil work to the point that there's not supposed to be any coming out of the dungeon. Just look at what they've done in the not a nation arrangement called Nigeria. Look at all the replacements of good for evil, which they have done there. Look at all they have done. Everything that they said they would replace with the bad things of their own. You heard them say that the African people would come to consider what the colonizer brings as being good and greater than what is African, which means that what the colonizer has is not good. And that is now clearly evident. We are now seeing it right before our eyes. We have just now listed the things that the foundation laid by the colonizers has given birth to, and we didn't even exhaust the list. You can thus see, indigenous Yoruba people, that we must stand totally firm. We must all rise and have unity of heart and be bold and strong. Let's be sure to rise up. Let's be sure to rise up. Because all the poverty and suffering we have seen should not be happening to us. It's below our dignity. In the first place, God is not the one directing the poverty and suffering towards us. After all, it is our land. We are the owners of the land. We are the owners of the resources. Why should it be that we cannot use what belongs to us? Why should it be that we can't even see what belongs to us? Why should it be that we are not enjoying anything out of what belongs to us? So, why? What happened? Those of you who should even be part of those at the forefront of fighting to advance the fact that God has removed the poverty and suffering from us. And I am talking to those of you who call yourselves religious leaders. What kind of religion are you practicing? What religion? Are you calling on the true God? You open your eyes, seeing all the poverty and suffering happening to the people, and yet you are still backing and supporting Nigeria. You say you are praying for Nigeria. You are praying for falsehood. You heard it from Macaulay, didn't you? Go and find out what he said. If you didn't know, go and find out and check if it happened or did not happen. Are you, as a matter of fact, calling on God? Your race, the Yoruba race, is suffering. Some are eating the flesh of one another, yet you are just there. What exactly is the matter? You claim to be close to God. Don't you know what God wants for your people, the Yoruba race? Are the poverty and suffering what God wants? Don't you know what God wants with regards to your people, the Yoruba? What's the matter? You open your eyes while the people suffer to this extent. What happened? Ah, I muse. I tell you, you cannot escape it. God will execute the judgment. Exactly as is due for you, He will execute the judgment against you. That's exactly how it should be. God will execute judgment upon you. And quickly, too.